What's up, guys? It's another Teach Me Tuesday. In this Teach Me Tuesday, we're going to talk about the most important roles in your real estate transaction. I'm Will My Bear with eXp Realty, team leader, and I also got the Abrahams above me. Hey, guys, let introduce yourselves.
Yeah, so LaShawn Abraham. I am the sales manager with Gill Mortgage in our Somerville, South Carolina location, and I am one half of our Team Abraham duo.
Yep, G to the A to the V to the I to the N. Gavin. Y'all wasn't expecting that one. But mortgage loan officer here in Somerville, Gill Mortgage, Team Abraham. Uh, guys jumping in, ready to rock another Teach Me Tuesday. So let's get it.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited
So,
about this topic as we're wrapping it up. So this is gonna be good.
yeah. We've been really like digging in deep with some of the roles, and we're going to try to get through these next couple ones. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think we just to reiterate, I know we capped off last week. We talked about your realtor, we talked about your lender, we talked about in the process of ordering an appraisal. The appraiser, how they play a role. We talked about getting inspections. The home inspector. We talked about the attorney, how they come into play. Um, the loan processor. Who they are, what they do. And then I guess now, guys, well, we're now hitting on the underwriter and then the closing process. So, um, very important person in this process, the underwriter. When you think of underwriter, you just can think of decision maker because that's who's going to ultimately make the decision on whether your loan gets approved or is not approved. LaShawn,
I
what would
think
you?
that's a really good point. A really good point because a lot of times, the people, I hear this all the time. Seriously, I hear from both realtors and from the client itself. They think that sometimes we get labeled as the bad guys over here. That it's the lender, LaShawn or Gavin needs to approve your loan. Contrary to popular belief, LaShawn or Gavin does not approve any loans at all. The most we do is pre-approve you. That's
Mm,
it. That ultimate decision lies with the underwriter, and the
mm,
underwriter is completely different from the loan officer. Now, however, most lenders, loan companies, banks, credit unions, we kind of touched on all of them. All of us in general want to give you a mortgage. But I think the loan officer really wants to give you a loan because, once again, as we explained before, that's how we are compensated based on you getting the loan. An underwriter, on the other hand, I don't want to say they could care less, but they really could care less because they're not compensated that way.
mm,
They are bounded by the investors that those lenders actually sell the loan to, and so
mm,
they have a license too, but their license is a lot more restrictive, and it's way more critical in the process. So when
Mhm.
they're looking over all the paperwork and documentation and appraisals and whatever else that comes to play that you guys have provided or that we have obtained, they don't get to talk to you. You will never see them. You don't even know their name. All they do is truly evaluate your story, your paperwork against whatever that loan program that you're trying to get approved for. And they will make sure specifically that, so say, for example, if you're trying to, get a loan with down payment assistance and the minimum credit score is a 620. So what they do is they kind of dot the I's and cross the T's to make sure, one, your credit score is a 620. How they validate that, they're going to look at your credit report to make sure, check, it's there. And then they're going to look at the investor guidelines. So if you're trying to get specifically an FHA loan or a VA loan, they're going to look at that investor's guideline and make sure that the investor guidelines say 620, and then they'll check, so they kind of
Okay.
go line by line to do that process.
Gotcha. Well, yeah. Don't get too technical on the people.
I think I was
Uh,
very simple.
yeah. Don't get too technical. But the point blank is that the underwriter is truly the decision maker, and they're making decisions based on guidelines that they have to follow, and they're not gray. They're for the most part black and white, um, and yeah, they hold the
The power.
the the keys to the home in a sense. They don't release them until they vet it and validate that your loan can be approved.
And so I didn't want to cut you off, Gavin. Were you about to
But
say
you
something?
did. Go ahead.
I know I did, but do you want to say something? Because I don't want to get too in the weeds on this part, because our next part, of this discussion, I really want to make sure we have enough time to talk about it. But so we are going to quickly kind of go through just the closing process. And so I know it's a little different for you, Wilmot, on the realtor side versus us on the lending side. So kind of just tell the clients a little bit, or our audience a little bit, about the closing process for you, because I know y'all probably have a final walkthrough and stuff that y'all do before you get to the closing piece.
Yeah, and Gavin kind of touched on it. So as a realtor, one of our jobs is to make sure everybody has what everyone needs. And making sure, hey, we're on target, because our job is to make sure, hey, we're going to stay on target for this closing date. Because if we closing on the end of the month, or we approaching that day, hey, I want to make sure attorneys and also the mortgage company has been communicating properly, that they have what they need. There's times when I'm checking with both of them, and somebody say, I haven't spoken with the lender yet, or the attorney hasn't sent over the title work yet. So I'm making sure I'm communicating with both parties. They're making sure that, hey, they have what they need, the underwriter has what they need, attorneys have what they need, the numbers balance, so and just making sure the buyer or the seller is informed about what's going on as well. There might have been some repairs that needed to be made to the house, that we are sending the inspector back out there to make sure to confirm the seller made those repairs. It's a couple moving parts, that we're just trying to make sure this transaction get to the closing table, and the buyer and the seller are happy at the same time. So yeah.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff. So, like on the lending side, Gavin, our process is a little different. So after they have went through underwriting and we officially got what we call the clear to close,
Right.
The loan, meaning that everything's checked off, the underwriter has signed off on everything. So what can a person expect on the lending side when it comes to closing?
Yeah, I mean, well, guys, once we get the clear to close, we're immediately sending it to our closing team, who is balancing your final closing disclosure with the attorneys. You'll receive a preliminary closing disclosure a few days, at least 3 days prior to your closing date, or your expected closing date. And that's where we go over, the final numbers. That's what we're looking at to say, hey, this is what you're going to need to bring to closing. Very important. Everybody needs to know what money is needed to close on your loan. That's what we're going to reiterate. Hey, these are your fees. These are all the fees and the final numbers that are comprised into not only your loan, but again, also the funds that you'll need to bring to closing. Here's your monthly payment, interest rate that we locked you in at, everything we're going to go through and make sure that you understand, the details of your loan. That's what the closing disclosure displays. So once we get that, they balance with the attorneys. We're letting everyone know, hey guys, we got to clear the close. This is the exciting part, the very, very exciting time, because for as me as a lender, it's that thing that tells me that my job is almost done. So I'm more than happy to call my clients and say, hey, congratulations. I'm more than happy to call Wilmot. Hey, bro, we got to clear the close. We solid. We good. Let's get to the closing table. And then we get the attorneys involved. They send out their final closing disclosure to the clients, and now we have closing date time set. We all show up. The buyer and sometimes the seller. You know what? Let's talk about this. What's not as common, that I don't see as much anymore. Before, sellers and buyers used to be in the same room, signing at the same time. I know every house well, not every house. I think up until our
last, for the most part, most of the houses that we bought, the seller was present.
Yeah, the seller was present.
Right, I don't see that as often anymore.
Yeah, but now the seller may show up and sign documents before or even after. Sometimes, but so in most cases now, which Wilmot can allude to.
Go ahead, Gavin.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say that. Yeah, so on closing day, it's typically the buying agent, the attorney, the the actual borrower who's buying the house.
Mhm.
And then if you with Team Abraham, baby, we're gonna be there to celebrate with you. So
There you go. Yeah, man. It's. I guess the landscape has changed. It's whatever's convenient for the client. If let's say the seller is out of town, um, owner, we've done closings where the seller could be in another state, and we do what we call mail offs or whatever. Or if it's a cash deal, you don't necessarily have to be there to sign documents in person. It can be done electronically. But if it is a mortgage company involved, a lot of things have to be wet signed. So seller can come in prior to and sell at a different time. I mean, and sign at a different time, or they can come together at the same time. And hey, there's that congratulations from the handing off of the keys from the seller to the buyer, your traditional closing. But it's been a lot of closings, man. It's just been me, the attorney, and the buyer, right there, and they're homeowners after that day. So yeah.
Wow, that's good to know. That's good to know. So, as we wrap up, just last little piece about the roles. As always, guys, if you have any questions, definitely drop them in the chat. Always feel free to reach out to us individually or collectively, whatever your heart desire. But we are going to shift gears to another topic that is very, very, very common. It's a common conversation. It's definitely, I see people. Posting about it because even it's on the news and the media. I mean, it's the popular thing that's going on right now, which is interest rates. I mean, everybody wants to know about interest rates. They want to know why they so high. They want to know if they're going to go down. They're going to know how can they get a lower payment. It's just a hot topic. We're going to kind of talk about rates just a little bit, just to give you guys that information so that you are better informed. And so that way, when you're ready to take that step to buy a house, you'll know, what your options are. So when it comes to interest rate, first, just to kind of set this up, Wilmot, what do you hear? Because I know you work with buyers and sellers, but I know a lot of your buyers a lot of buyers right now are very payment conscious right now. So what are you kind of hearing out in the market as far as your concerns that your clients may be having about rates and payment and things like that?
There's some hesitation there. I'm definitely starting to see buyers being hesitant because of the payment amount per month that they're going to be paying for the house.
Are they more so hesitant, you think, because they feel like they can't afford it, or they don't want to pay it?
Well, I think I'm gonna be honest with you. I think we're a little spoiled from where interest rates were. You know what I mean? And how much house you could have bought, compared to what you can afford now. And LaShawn, I know you guys are probably gonna go into this, but I've had some clients say, "Hey, yeah, man, I'm going to wait until interest rates drop or what so, before I buy a house." But I will say this, guys, I'm seeing some really, really good deals occur because people are sitting on the sideline and sellers are being more negotiable with the price point, and also maybe willing to pay a good bit of closing costs for you as well, because of the market slow down a little bit. So I I really caution the buyer to maybe sit on the sideline because, and I know you guys are gonna go into this, when interest rates do drop, think about it like this: there are going to be some other buyers that's going to come into the market as well. All right, which is going to make it more competitive to buy that home that you want. So hey, take advantage of the opportunity that's here, where there is a little bit of increase in inventory, and also more negotiable sellers out there as well. So
Yeah, so that's a really good point. Because right now, as you mentioned, a few things, what a seller can contribute. So especially on average, if a house has been sitting, 30 days or more than 30 days, and a seller is really trying to sell their house,
Yeah.
they may be a lot more, prone to like, okay, well, let's drop the price because we want to get it sold.
All right.
And so because of that, they may be willing to, like you say, offer a lot more in closing costs. So when it comes to different loan types, traditionally, if it's a conventional loan, a seller can contribute up to 3% if that person is a first-time buyer towards closing costs. If it's an FHA loan, they can actually contribute up to 6%, which is a good deal of closing costs. I mean, Gavin and I have truly had on a contract where a seller truly gave like 20 grand in closing costs on an FHA loan, and that really helped the buyer do a lot of things and make them happy with their payment. If it's VA, they can contribute up to 4%, and so forth. So there's a lot of, like you said, a lot of room to negotiate sometimes with these sellers, and sometimes waiting is not going to necessarily be the best option, because honestly, a lot of clients that we've had who said they were going to wait on the beginning of the year because rates were supposed to come down by this time of the year and they didn't. They're now kind of looking like, man, I should have jumped in, because now we're rates are pushing 7-8% in some instances, when rates before at the peak they were at 5, maybe even 6.
Yeah, but you know what? Even think about the buyers who were, when rates first started going up, post COVID, and we were so spoiled at 2.5%, 3%, 3.5%.
Wow.
And then, oh man, rates up to 4%. I'm gonna wait and see what happens.
Yeah.
And we up to 5%. Ah, man, I should.
So I mean, you got a good point. So I think about this as like double dutch, right? So how do you know? Like, if you had to give your own like opinion or advice, like how do you know when to jump in? So right now, if you wanted to buy today, right, and you saw that rates were 7%, like how do you know, should you truly just go ahead and do it, or should you wait? I think that's like a valid question people ask.
It is, and I think sometimes that question can be, it's fully loaded, or it can be just scenario based.
Give me a simple answer.
A simple answer?
If I called you, Gavin, and like, hey, Gavin, what's your rate? Should I buy now? What you gonna say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why?
Absolutely.
Because ownership and equity is the goal. You want to own. You want to invest in your own property, so that you can enjoy the benefits of the equity that you build over time, or that you gain over time.
And what would you say, Wilmot? What would your answer be if I called you and was like, I want to buy a house, but the lender's saying these rates 7%? Should I wait? Like, what should I do?
So let me say this. There is, well, first of all, my answer would be, hey, if you find the house you love, let's move on it. Okay, that's number one. But I will say this: look at what the rich are doing. Look at what the wealthy are doing. One of the wealthiest people in the world, Warren Buffett, just invested in real estate. He's buying when a lot of people aren't. So what does that say? I want to do what the rich are doing, So invest when a lot of people are on the sidelines. I think that says a lot about why they're wealthy, and a lot of reasons why a lot of people aren't. So I look at that. Somebody like Warren Buffett invested a ton of money in like D.R. Horton and some other real estate companies. So that's going to be building houses. So he's definitely putting his money where his mouth is, and definitely investing in real estate in a time when a lot of people might be sitting on the sideline.
That's a really good point. However, I mean, there are some very strategic ways that you can kind of go about trying to, lower your rate, or try to, make, the higher rate or payment a little bit more tolerable. So we'll kind of touch on those a little bit, and those are called buy downs. So there are two types of buy downs. You have something called a permanent rate buy down, and then you also have something called a temporary buy down. So a permanent rate buy down is truly you're permanently buying the rate down, right? So if rates are 7% and you want to buy it down to 6%, you can do that permanently, and that will be your rate for the life of the loan, right? But then you also have something, called temporary buy downs. And so, Gavin, did you want to explain what those are?
Yeah, I mean, guys, temporary buy downs is strictly temporary. There's a term on that buy down. Most right now, I know we offer 3, 2, or even 1 buy down. And what that means is there's either a 3-year buy down, a 2-year buy down, 1-year buy down. And each year, so let's say you want to do a 3-year buy down, and that first year of your mortgage, if your par interest rate that you locked in was at, well, right now rates are in 7%. So let's say 7%. Your first year on your paying your mortgage, if you did a 3-2-1 buy down, your first year, your interest rate is going to be 4%. So it's going to be 3 points less than what your locked in rate is. Second year, it's going to be 5%. Third year, it's going to be 6%. And then you go back for the life of your loan back to the par rate that you locked in at 7%. Why is this a good thing? What's the benefit of this? It gives you temporary relief over the beginning period of your loan. So here we are. We expect rates to they drop at some point. It's always the when it comes to an election time or closer to the presidential election, rates typically trend to go down. And we're hopeful, we're expecting that. We don't have the answer, but we generally we're following the trend, and that's typically the trend every 4 years or around election time. So the benefit to someone that's doing that is that, well, if I do this temporary buy down, man, I can, instead of me paying $2,000 for my monthly mortgage, with me doing that, having that interest rate at 4% for the first year, my payment's only going to be $1,600. So that's me eliminating $400 each month for my first year. I can deal with that. That's going to help me out. And my mindset is, well, the election is coming up. They say rates are going to drop. By that time, I'm hoping to have built enough equity in my home. Hopefully my home increases in value, appraises for more, and then also the money I'm paying my mortgage gives me enough equity to where I can now refinance because rates drop to, rates down to 5%, 5.5%, versus that 7 I'm locked in at for the term of my loan. I'm a refinance, and now I'm coasting at a lower payment through the life of my loan, versus being at that flat rate of 7% on throughout. So it's very beneficial to borrowers. But the kind of the caveat to that, LaShawn, how do I do a temporary buy down? Like how much money does it cost, or give me the little details of that.
That's good. I'm glad you guys are going over this because it gives people options, in this market where they think that, hey, they just set at that particular rate. I'm glad you guys are going over this.
Yeah. I mean, and that's one of the reason why we all do, this Teach Me Tuesday, is to provide you guys with, just different information, different strategies. But to answer your question, and to put, a little disclaimer out there, all lenders may not offer temporary buy down. So just know that. But, we do here at Gill Mortgage, we do offer it. And all of them may have different terms. So, but for the most part, where this come into play is kind of to your point, Wilmot, is majority of the cost of those temporary buy downs are paid by the seller. So getting closing costs or having those closing cost concessions and things like that is going to be key whenever you want to do a temporary buy down. We do offer some buy downs that allow yourself as the buyer to buy your rate down temporarily, but you're kind of limited. Typically, you can't, as a consumer, as the buyer yourself, you can't buy your rate down typically temporarily more than a year. So if you want to do something for a longer period, like a 2 or 3 year, you have to have seller closing costs as well. But on average, what I've seen is with an additional $5,000, you can do a 2-year temporary buy down. It gets a little bit more expensive with the 3-year. You're probably looking closer to $8,000 to maybe $10,000 in seller closing costs, and you can do a 3-year buy down instead. But to me, I think that's still reasonable, especially to give you that temporary relief, so that you're comfortable with making your mortgage payment. Because there's something called payment shock, right? So especially if a person, was renting and they're used to paying, $1,200 or maybe $1,000 a month, and all of a sudden they have to go to a $1,800 mortgage payment. That's called payment shock. And so a lot of time people are not comfortable doing it, which Wilmot, you kind of alluded to. You've seen some hesitation there, and so to kind of alleviate that, the temporary buy downs can really help with that.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I was saying, and adding to that, that just also reminds me. I know we talked about buyers being hesitant, but Wilmot, I'm sure. I mean, you probably may come across where sellers are even hesitant, because guess what? Sellers who are probably locked in at rates at 3%, 3.5%, 2%, whatever it may be, a lot lower than where today's market is. Guess what they have to do after they sell their home? They got to go back out and buy. And they don't want to, they're hesitant about now having to pay a mortgage with an interest rate of 7%, when they were so accustomed and used to only paying, interest rates at 3%.
Yeah. One of the things I had to do recently, man, and it's just part of my job. I had a seller reach out to me about selling their home because they wanted to downsize. And I told him, I said, hey, do you know what your interest rate is? And it was like, I think we had about a 4%. I said, okay, well, let me explain something to you. If you sell your home and you downsize, you might have the same monthly payment.
Right.
So, and I just wanted them to know, I'm not just out there just trying to sell your house. I just want you to know, when we do this, we're going to strategize. We're going to talk about it. We're going to make sure we put you in a better position after the transaction, so, and they ended up not selling their home, but it's all good. I just want people to understand, like, it's okay to reach out to someone if you have questions about, your current situation. It might not be a good time for you to sell in this market, so, and that's a different conversation right there.
Yeah. But to your point with your client, we have clients like that call as well. Either they already have an existing mortgage with us and they're trying to figure out, what can they afford if they do sell their house, or what type of things can they take advantage of if they do decide to sell their house. So one of the things that we do with our clients as well, in the same situation as with you and that potential seller that you was talking to, is sometimes what we like to do is look at how much equity they have in their house. So if they was to sell their house, how much is they going to net? If they're gonna be getting like $100,000, $150,000 or something back. So we think we try to strategically figure out, okay, well, if you apply this chunk of money towards down payment, so you're not financing a lot. If you also take another chunk of your money and maybe pay off debt. Because if you got rid of your car payment, if you got rid of, student loans or whatever, then maybe that higher payment may not be as bad, because now you have eliminated, all this other debt.
Yeah, opening up your budget more, and again, it's a lot of different ways to play with it, but the ultimate thing we wanted to hit on was just that you have options. And those options, when you aren't as comfortable with the payment, is looking at whether a permanent buy down is going to be beneficial or a temporary buy down, and that's also based on different loan programs that you may be going with, because down payment assistance sometimes those are fixed interest rates, and they don't offer any additional buy down options. So it's all dependent upon program and what preferences are and what your personal situation is, because having money in your pocket over the long term up front may be more important to you versus saving on your monthly payment each month.
Exactly.
So this was really good. I mean, we're almost at our 30 minutes. We try to keep these to about that or so, just so that we continue to capture your attention and not take up too much of your time. But was there anything else you wanted to add, Wilmot or Gavin, before we close out?
No, I mean, I just hope everybody got some value from it. There's a lot of different moving parts in this transaction. I saw a post the other day, and it kind of was like, wow, people really don't know what all goes on in a transaction and what could go wrong.
Mhm.
So definitely, seek the professionals
Mhm.
to help you with it, so that hey, you don't have any regrets at the end. So yeah.
That is very, very, very sound advice. And as always, we're always here to help. So if you guys have any questions, like I said, comments, reach out, send direct messages, or so forth. And we're always happy to help. So there we go as we wrap up this episode of our Teach Me Tuesday for today.
We'll be back next week.
All right. See you guys next time. Bye.
Peace.